Hey, Josh Johnson Boss on DB and all the different stuff out there for Edison. Wanted to record a video today. I was undefeated in Swiss in Fraser's 1K that happened today, and then I just lost in top 8, so not that impressive of an overall tournament. And I didn't really want to like record it to be like, oh, look at like a huge top or a huge result, like a one or anything. But I know the last time I did this type of a video, a lot of people gave really good feedback that they found it valuable. And just because I topped again, I bubbled a couple of the bigger events over the last few months, just like having the same number of losses as the lowest topper, but just didn't quite get there. But since I topped this time again, I felt like it would have been a fun thing to go back and revisit and walk through and talk through the replays again. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. If you saw my last one, it's like a 2-hour video. This one probably won't be as long. It's 5 less games. I'm just gonna go through them game by game, talk through the plays and the thoughts that I might have while doing it, trying to be as honest as I can about the scenario now that I have full knowledge, but also just what I was thinking at the time. There's probably a few misplays throughout, yeah, just go from there. So before I dive in, I do want to just pull up the list that I played today. It is this one that you see here. I think the notable overarching thing is Stratos, Rhoda, and then also 2 Sam Knight. Outside of that, there's nothing too crazy going on here. And to me, Stratos Rhoda is not that crazy at all. A lot of people ask about this, and my opinion that I'll try to talk throughout this is just that Stratos represents a really good, strong, normal summon, obviously, a +1, and the real key thing is like exchanging through Shura's, the other Stratoses of the opponent, or eating like a Raikou, eating like a Prisoner Bottomless even occasionally, because sometimes they just need to based off the scenario. And then having the extra just Prisma show up in your hand. And I think today in the replays you'll see that the exchanging didn't come up as much, but the extra Prisma in my hand for the game state came up a lot, and was really valuable. And to me, the last video I did of this, that I'll try to link in this as well, is also what came up a lot, was that exchanging and the Prisma. So it's really good, and I think it's worth playing. I would say this is maybe the closest I've ever come to a GB list that I feel like is the correct one. Certainly, I'm never going to bang the drums as like you have to do X, Y, or Z. There's 10 other cards you could consider, and none of which are too wrong. But I guess that's, again, the big thing is the Stratos, Rhoda, and then the double Sam Knight. Obviously, we've talked a little bit in the past about Gores. Some people don't like Gores. I just think it fills a nice little role in the deck, and a lot of people just still don't expect it in GBs. Even though a lot of the topping lists have had it, so kind of just how I view it as good. This does have a single Darius. I've been on one Darius for a while, and I think what it comes down to is it certainly is never like, oh, it's never going to come up, right? Like, it is going to come up in some games. So it's not this situation where it's like never an issue. However, by fitting Rhoda Stratos in overall, which I just think are more important than 2 Darius, to get the deck list to the size that you want it, like fitting a second Darius is really, really tough. And so it's at 1, and I honestly believe after playing like probably a couple thousand matches with single Darius, after playing an equal number with double, if you're consciously managing the resource of Darius well, like tagging him in and not leaving him out, obviously not trying to throw him into bottomless prison scenarios, if you're like actively managing it, even when it doesn't matter in the current game state, but like you're splitting hairs on a tag in or tag out or something, based off of that, it's pretty damn rare it comes up in a way that influences the results of the game. Now, maybe you have to play a little bit differently, but I think ultimately it doesn't influence the final result all that much if you just manage it well. And getting stuck in, I think what people do, I've done in the past, they think of that one game where they're like, oh, the secondaries really hurt me, and they don't actually go back and look at the game on how they could have played it differently so that the one Darius didn't matter at all. Or just realize, like, hey, like, you know what, 1 in 50 matches, if you lose a game out of all those because of a decision, that probably doesn't mean it's the wrong deck building decision. if the rest of the deck went right. So that's my comment on the one Darius. And I guess just to comment on the two Sam Knight, I have been on that more in the last couple of months. Jake and Murray, I know, have both been on two Sam Knight for a while. And I will say there's a small correlation to the Darius decision where I do think having just one more GB that we can voluntarily toss in the back row and scenarios that are dangerous is really nice. So I kind of feel like I either need two Darius or two Sam Knight, or I could do two Ready R, to be fair too. But I need two of one of those because I need something to toss in the back row. The fact that they're over 1,500 is a little bit good too.
Hey.
Yeah.
Who the hell are you talking to?
Oh, motherfucker. I was recording a video. How long have you been sitting here listening?
Hey, lead us in. Just lead us in. Hold on.
No.
Just leave it in. Lead us in.
How long have you been talking?
I just started talking, bro. Hey, look. Hey, it's what's up, y'all? Blue Man at 12, blackxSanji, whatever you want to call him. Hey, man, the best GB player in the land right here at your fingertips. Joshua Johnson, also known as Johnson Boss, Johnson Secretary, Johnson Arithmetic, Johnson Security.
So back to this. I was randomly in a Discord voice that was empty until that moment, which is pretty funny. But again, so talking about two Sam Knight from the top is, and it's correlated to the Darius decision in the sense that I believe having two Darius or two Sam Knight, one of those two is a good decision. Largely in part because when you play the game, I do feel like it comes up where you need just one more body to toss into bottomlesses, to toss into prisons or Raikos, depending on the scenario, and lose it without having it affect your overall toolbox. Two Ready R, I have liked in the past. I have the second one sided for the matchups where it is really extra valuable. But the fact that it's under 1,200 or under 1,500 influences the fact that it doesn't eat the bottomless, which sometimes I want to test bottomless before I bet maybe bestiary something. And so two Darius or two Sam Knight both accomplish that. One of the reasons I think the second Sam Knight has, actually the two main reasons the second Sam Knight has come up lately for me is really valuable. One, a lot of times if you're tagging two GBs in, if there's no obvious plus ones, like obviously we're checking the boxes of the apparent decisions, but if we have a free tag, it's really nice, especially if we have like book or shrink, to say, you know what, we'll throw Laquari and Sam Knight out here, and the chances are that Sam Knight can, like, if I book something and then Sam Knight attacks and gets a search, well, I think you like almost don't lose those games because that +1 Sam Knight search off of the battle destruction is really, really good. And so having two lets you a lot more confidently summon in a Sam Knight before you've resolved Cat. Because if you only have one, you just can't really feel like you're risking the Sam Knight. Because if you draw Cat and your Sam Knight's not in the deck, it feels really bad. And so that's a big one for me is the search effect comes up because we can more willingly throw Sam Knight into danger and occasionally get those searches out of it. And the other thing, I'm avoiding the obvious of sometimes Cat into Sam Knight could come up. 3,200 damage is not irrelevant. And obviously, if a Sam Knight's missing, the Cat's still alive. That's just the obvious benefit. But the other thing that does really come up is Cat versus a Necro engrave. So if they open some sort of like Arma or Grepher dump into it, obviously with Grepher you'd have to book it or something. But when there's an ability to double attack through a Necro, what that creates is a guaranteed Gazaris after the battle phase, or whatever makes sense, but probably Gazaris because it keeps the 2 GB bodies in theory and pops cards. But it eats those Armageddon Knight dump Necro plays that for GBs are kind of a pretty big nuisance sometimes when you can't break through it. Because Cat just doesn't naturally break through that itself without other cards or 2 Sam Knights. And so the double Sam Knight also helps Cat break some boards that a single Sam Knight can't. And so I've liked that a lot lately. I think it comes up from a flexibility standpoint when you have the Cat to handle some of the matchups out there. Vayu with Necro specifically. and like maybe frogs with discard traps, but it's not as big a deal against frogs. And so that's why I've liked the double Sam Knight. I think one of the two Darius, 2 Sam Knight feels pretty necessary for the overall toolbox management. And double Sam Knight for me lately has come up like significantly more frequently than a second Darius ever will, like by a factor of 10. And so for me, that's where I'm at right now on the list. Nothing super notable on the side here. I decided to go with Transmigration and Crow. I used Crow once or twice. Transmigration would have resolved to like secure a match if I hadn't already won it. Oppression I like a lot personally. As a one-of, people are not ready for it in GBs, and it just solos games very frequently. Herc and Oppression behind it is just really hard to break. So that's good. Triple trap hole. Again, I don't think that's too crazy. 2 is probably maybe a little more appropriate, but I just what I did today. There's a lot more flexibility in the side deck as to what I think is correct, but I like the triple trap hole to a decent degree, especially going first in the Blackwings. Sometimes, frequently, even like going second in the Blackwings, I'm just like, I want the summon interruption. The second smashing is always good. There is no cold wave in this build right now. I wouldn't say I'm 1 over to heavy triple stun over heavy wave double stun in the main, but just what I've done a little bit lately, it's a little bit less to think about than having the turn set up for wave to not be like hurting you too bad on the clapback. And I've just put an MST and a tornado in lately. I think you could easily have wave in addition to these here available if you wanted, because it is really exceptional in some scenarios. But overall, I felt this is also fine enough lately. So that's the build. Again, I don't think there's anything too special here. So I'll get into the replays now, and hopefully that was interesting enough to keep in. So we did go 6-0 in Swiss, which is cool. Always feels nice to do that, even though we lost in the top cut. And I'm just going to go through each of these replays one by one and talk through what I'm thinking. So first I had Topher here. He was on Vayu. Him and I have played like 2 or 3 times in the first round of some of these big tournaments, which is crazy, but quite a bit overall. I won the die roll, opened pretty solid here. A lot of flexibility where we kind of view this is the type of hand, and I'll say this a lot throughout this because I do think I drew pretty well in the tournament and didn't play terrible. I don't think I like made exceptional plays throughout, but didn't get heavy that much, and that made a big difference, which is not a crazy statement in GBs. Nothing too crazy to think about here. I think with the Chariot versus an unknown opponent and Laquari, it's just going to be really strong to set bottomless Chariot Laquari, and then the Stratos can come in whenever I need it, or I have a second GB summon if it's a clear path for that kind of thing. And so that's what I did. And obviously he is on Vayu. I don't know that yet. He just T-sets in response. This is fine to me. This Tiger's an incredible draw. And right away, for me at least, what I think sticks out right away is this Stratos now has immense value. One, I don't mind summoning into Mirror Torrential if that's what it is, because he's replacing himself, and that's nuking this field as well. 2, my Tiger is now exceptionally live for a big swing play if and when it comes up. So there's already like a ton of value this Stratos is delivering, one of which is just allowing me to summon another monster here into this back row to put more pressure on him, and I'm not losing any value in that process of summoning that other monster either. So that's, I think, a good example right off the gates of the Stratos. So I normal Stratos, search my Prisma, and I get to attacking. Good example here too, like this is pressure that Stratos put on, and he didn't bottomless because he can't. He needs to save this bottomless for Prismas or GBs. So this is basically like if this was a GB, it gets bottomless 100%. And so instead, I just got 1,800 damage in with the new monster in hand, and I'm tagging off Laquari because of the Chariot plus that scenario. So it's like a good way to look at its value, where a lot of times people get stuck saying like, oh, like I wish this was always Prisma. And there's times where you're like, Stratos being Prisma would be better here. However, if you look at like the chess match that gets played on like how like the card economy of a game works, frequently there's this scenario where like I'm pretty plus advantage in a couple different ways in life points and bodies and cards, because of this being Stratos and because he couldn't have bottomless it. So we're going to go for a quest, get Chariot. He is going to bottomless then, which makes 100% sense. I've already normaled, so I decide here to just set Compulse. I probably didn't have to set anything, but I do set Compulse, I think. Yep. So now he's under pressure already. He's got no oversummons on Stratos, so he's got on-field pressure immediately, and he has to start pushing. So he just does Grepher thing, sends that, and then Stratos attacks, and I normal Sam Knight so that I at least out of the Grepher, and now Sam Knight is getting the Chariot live on board. So Arma comes in and sends Sirocco. We didn't Chariot the Armageddon Knight because Dad could have come down there, and this kind of felt like Dad to me at the time, even though it's not. So we just let that go, and we have plenty of solutions for Armed Wing. And especially because even if Deck Dev is the only big concern then, and even if he has Deck Dev, it's not really an extreme concern to have Deck Dev go off right now. We have 3 overs, including a Gazaris. So losing Tiger is not all that bad if he does Deck Dev here. So he attacks, I can pulse, then he goes return. At this point, I mean, this return's not very good already, so I knew immediately that I had the game once he returned, because it was just not a good setup to burn the return there. So now we're starting game 2. Pretty sucky open, to be honest. We have 5 monsters, including Rhoda as a monster and Trap Stun. And that means our monsters just becoming MSTs is really important. So we're throwing Sam Knight at it. This is a good example of double Sam Knight kind of carrying some value, because I get to toss him in, tag in a Laquari if it makes sense. But I get to toss him in and lose him, and it just doesn't matter at all to me. I didn't go Rhoda here first because I had so many GBs that there was a chance I was going to want to make this a Prisma instead of Stratos. And versus Vayu, I was like, I would much rather be at 2100 if all this works out against this back row, because Sirocco coming down over a Stratos on the field with only Trap Stun was going to be a negative position out of the gates. So that's why we did this in hopes of a Laquari and being over the Sirocco, and just flexibility from there. So that gets banished. We get MST'd there. So we're already not in a great position in this game 2. He goes Brio against our 4 things. This Compulse is pretty good here, and now I can't break through this Brio immediately, but this is a prime example of I got a +1, I thin the deck a little bit, and set the Compulse. This Compulse, if he doesn't have the immediately follow-up that he has, is actually like pretty dang good, except he has Sidra into Gale immediately, which means he has Stardust, which means I'm going to have a tough time beating that with 4 monsters. Now, what's crazy is I really, it's going to be hard to see this like in the replay here, but I like really quickly normal and attack into this Stardust. And I am playing Shrink right now. So like people, if they watch my replays, they have to play around Shrink. And he's not in a scenario he can risk me having Shrink here to let it go. So he did the right thing here. This is not me saying I think Topher played this wrong. I think he did it right. But I pretty confidently just normal Laquari and attack Stardust. In which case he thinks for a second and then does the whole like, okay, nothing on attack deck, probably battle step, and I say damage, and then he necros in the battle step still. Which again, I think that interaction is just correct for him to do it this way. So I ate the Necro on the kind of the dummy attack there, and I'm going to set Chariot, which feels pretty good, to be honest, because he can't risk the Stardust into prison with his hand. The only downside is he top decks Oppression, so this Prisma that I'm sitting on, not good enough, unfortunately. This Gazaris with the Chariot set would have cleaned up the game the rest of the way had that not been bottomless or Oppression, basically. So unfortunately, didn't clear it, but it's fine. We will survive. So we get Oppressioned. He stops it, and then he kind of just attacks down the line. I think he attacks with both here and closes the game. And I did draw the stun that last time, but stun doesn't matter because even if I had to stun Oppression, then the Chariot's dead. Then I need to hit the Stardust with a Vagazaris. So like there was no way to play that better. I don't think, at least off the top of my head. So going to game 3, we opened pretty solid and flexible. Again, another hand that's kind of like, if you don't heavy me, I don't know how you're beating GBs with these hands. Like, it just takes a lot of specific stuff to happen when GBs has this kind of ratio and flexibility of how to play different hands. I probably should have set prison here. I realized that as I started. I always go back and forth a little bit on that because I really like compulse versus like an opening brain into Sirocco or brain to heavy. To be able to compulse something that gets brain controlled, I really like. But ultimately, I think Prism is probably a better first set here than compulse. Not just because of how it played out, but I ended up having to compulse a Rocco back to him instead of prison it, which is a little bit worse. But we do that, and we get really lucky here. So he just sets one in return. I have MST to take care of that, and then I just top dead cat. This is just absurd. I feel kind of bad about it. And then as soon as we hit our burial here, we know his hand is really, really dead because there's no way he's risking burial into the field with a good hand in a good scenario. And the reality is, like, it's not a terrible decision, I think, for him because it does slow me down. But the fact I had MST and then cat or any tiger access kind of closes this game off with a chariot and Herc on the back end of this. So we just do secular things. I mean, for some reason I did the wrong GB here for tagging in. Obviously it was 200 more damage if I just used the Laquari, but whatever. I knew it was game over at this point because we're just going to end in Laquari and Herc here with chariot set. So we have a tagging GB, 2 discards in hand, which were very apparent that he did not have that much to discard from his first turn. And so we basically know we've won already. So he opens a lore here, and what's crazy is the confidence level I had in this burial signaling he had a terrible hand is the only reason I'm negating this Allure. I can tell you there's like a 90% chance Allure in this scenario this early with only 2 discards in my hand versus 5 in theirs. I'm just not negating Allure because it's not a +1, it's just an even trait. But again, just specifically with what I saw out of him turn 1, I was just like, I think that this negate of Allure is going to be correct. And he's just in too rough of a spot to recover against this board. Because this is damage, and this is basically a 2-turn clock and kind of fundamentally more like a 1-turn clock. So I negate it. Again, also because this Sam Knight's also a free negate is a factor here. So I don't know he's got Raikou, so I have to recover Chariot in the scenario versus Equest Sam Knight. But the discard of Sam Knight is a fundamental +1 for me on the negate, where I'm not. I essentially didn't pay anything to do the actual negate. So we get Shrouds, which again is great here. I love drawing Shrouds with Herc on board because it's just a free body with Prisma to hand, so you don't lose any negates or anything. And we just go down the line here, and it's not a game at this point. It's just kind of an unfair setup for a board to deal with this. So good, pretty lucky game 1. Tover's a great opponent. And I was fairly fortunate to draw pretty well into it. So next, round 2, we have another Vayu matchup. We played a lot of birds in the tournament, so I kind of always like sharing that too because obviously you can't control who you play, but I do like when the tournament runs I have that are deep that also go through some of the tougher matchups. It just feels good at the time, honestly. So I'm playing Televisual here, another obviously really, really good opponent. This is I say something like this was a really sad or depressing opening at some point because I opened and I was like, I got Dust Shoot, Tiger, Prison and Quest, ready. I feel pretty good. And then he goes all out, puts Stardust on board, sets 2, and so he's got an empty hand. So I was like, well, Dust Shoot's already dead, and I'm facing down Greffer and 2 back rows. I did feel like I didn't think about it in the moment, but right after this turn, I was like, you know what, he probably has return back there. I think I should have maybe still attempted to attack here, but procting Prison plus Chariot with Laquari on field gave me a little bit of a prayer, I think. But him drawing Trooper here was really big because it was another over attack where Stardust didn't have to attack into me. I think if he had drawn something like a Raikou or something like that, I actually might have been in a really good spot. Granted, he probably still returns this turn then because he can put pressure on. But I don't know, because that would, if he doesn't draw an oversummon and doesn't return, I can Gazaris next turn. Or sorry, I don't have a Chariot. No, I'm pretty much toast actually. I'm sorry, I thought I had Chariot down in my head. So yeah, I was pretty much toast no matter what. This gets prison. I don't think I can think of a way I was going to win this one with the return on the back end of it. Even with this Compulse here, he was able to return to this. He Black Roses and then remakes a Stardust immediately. Is because he gets a +1 off this Trooper as well. So this is a really good play by him, honestly. Like, I could see a lot of players not come out on top in the Vayu with the Vayu deck, the draw here. So I think Televisual played really, really well in this game. He plays really well in the next one too and breaks a lot of back rows, and I just got kind of lucky. You'll see there's another cat off the top. So lost the first one. Doesn't feel good against a really good player and a deck that's as good as Vayu. And I also opened 6 purples, which I think becomes 8 purples. So you see there's nothing crazy going on. I'm kind of speeding through these turns because it's just armor attack. Nothing crazy. 8 purples in a row now to start. He's got Dad Plague Rock. I kind of got lucky. He doesn't have anything where he's like, I really should accelerate. Maybe he could Plague and then summon 6-star and then drop Dad, but I agree with him not doing that at the beginning here. So he's still just pressuring. Finally a draw GB. I Trapstone the Bottomless. I didn't Trapstone Advance because I really just felt like I need to start finding some value. So like Trapstone in Advance means I don't get any value off of it, and I just felt like economically this game, the way I was going to win it, one, I had replacements for Trapstone and stuff, but 2, I just really felt like I had to start eating his back rows, and I wasn't going to be able to Bestiari something, obviously, this turn, so I just decided that this was the best way to do it. So lose the Compulse, which I thought about the Compulse for a second, but there was no better use of it, so didn't end up doing anything with it there. He Necros, fortunately still have more back rows to set. And this is a crazy turn, I believe. So he goes this into Brio. He Brio doubles so that he can then take the Vayu out and drop the Dad. I Chariot that. I end up prisoning that. He Icaruses. I just have to trap stun because I'm losing 2 cards anyways off of that, and sure enough, Dad comes down under trap stun. I guess I didn't have to trap stun, but it was Solemn and Mirror I think he was hitting anyways, so it didn't matter. Again, if you didn't catch that, actually, I did have Smashing Transmigration, and I top decked Cat. So obviously Cat, the best top deck here by far. Really, really good. However, any GB that could attack and tag into Laquari was going to be a really good draw here. Because I had Smashing for the Dad, it was basically like I need a monster, and then I drew Cat. Now Cat was exceptionally good because I also had Bestie already in graveyard, I trust him not to have Gores. Like, it's just good players shouldn't have Gores in versus GBs games 2-3, and I just expected him not to, so didn't really hesitate on this attack. Tagged into Laquaria Quest. So now, like, I mean, obviously this Cat was like quite literally a +3 in this turn, or +2 rather. I opened 3, I have 5 now. So it was a +2 in this turn with Chariot set, an over attack on Sirocco. It's really just incredible. I was probably going to be in Laquari Transmigration Smashing if I didn't get Cat specifically there. So pretty nuts. Now it would have cleared this. Again, it would have cleared what he draws for a few turns if it was just Laquari, but it just goes much faster without it. He doesn't draw anything really perfect to take care of anything I have. I do double set here because obviously he would have played heavy already if he had it. So I set the Bottomless and the Chariot then. Bottomless, the Rocco, pretty fast decision there. Just pretty crazy. I mean, Cat top deck is nuts. So open not incredible-ish with Sekidor being one of them, but we're in the position where it's probably a Raikou set. No one good is going to set anything without protection, or it's going to be a Raikou in this scenario versus GBs. And so I just Sekitor eat the Raikou to begin with, which is a pretty good value for that Sekitor conversion. And then I think I double set. Yeah. So we get heavied immediately off it, so we lose both of those. And And he puts a lot of pressure on, which is valuable and scary for sure in the moment. However, because his trap is fake, this shrink plus any GB breaks the board because we can just attack into one, shrink it, and then jump into Murmillo and pop the other one. So obviously you're lucky that this is not Bottomless Prison or Oppression there. Those all would have made this much more difficult with Torrential Mirror. We maybe would have had value and time anyways. But we're lucky that it just wasn't an interactive trap for us at that point because it let us break a board that looked pretty intimidating. So he drops Torrential. I attack. If Murmillo was like 1600 here or any of the 1600 GBs, I probably am not even thinking about tagging here. However, I was just like, Murmillo's so small anyways. I have a lot of life points to get at that I just felt okay tagging it even with the risk of Torrential on the back end. So I just ended up questing Secutor. So so a Tiger draw is now really good. And just some combo draws with Prisma, which is what actually I think ends up happening. So we see Torrential on Equesti, and I set Solemn. He draws Prison. And so now I just go ahead and set Secutor, knowing my next turn I've got Prisma and Nagazaris ready. So this thing gets mirrored, and now I've got Solemn with Gazaris coming, so I know I can Solemn anything. I mean, the fact that Torrential's and Bottomless's and One Oppression's gone is like, I was like, there's maybe a chance I don't have to Solemn, which is what ended up happening. I popped them both, and now at this point, once he's at 0 cards to, I think 6 cards off of this. Yeah, 6 cards off of this. It's just, or 7 cards, and with the Solemn, it's game over. And I flashed the Solemn to him to show him that I had anything taken care of that was going to come our way too. So again, I think I drew overall pretty well. I played decently there, made a couple good decisions, I think, with like the Secutor smash, how to handle the sequencing of stuff in game 2 for all the back rows to make it carry long enough for us to find some more monsters. And then obviously Top Taking Cat, that game was crazy. And then this game, again, was kind of simple, but Shrink really showed its value here, and why I've kind of liked it at 1, even though I'm back and forth on it. It's never more than 1. There's just no room to have a card like that more than 1, but at 1 it's good. So that was round 2, the second one versus Vayu. So next we have a Twilight match, which goes pretty quickly. It is still 3 games. I did notice an error that both him and I missed when I watched this earlier, and it could have changed the outcome if he milled 2 wolves off of Celestia specifically. But I think overall it probably did not matter. But you'll see in a second, I have a Murmillo that attacks a defense position Aaron, and we just kill the Aaron. Aaron gets sent to the graveyard even though Murmillo shouldn't be killing it. So that was a factor here. That's after this turn right here. So he summons Aaron here, and I end up obviously booking it. I do book in. It's important to like note here. He goes to end phase, and I tell him specifically, hey, I am, when you say I'm leaving M1, I'm going to book Aaron, because technically he can go like M1 to end phase, which is what he did. And that means he could prio mill before I could book it in the end phase. So I needed to clarify that. You'll see. So here's where I attacked Aaron, and it killed it. Again, it shouldn't have happened. I certainly did not intentionally try and do that or anything, but it's what happened here. So what should be happening is Aaron should be on field, and I probably am then tagging into probably still a quest into Chariot because of all the other back rows I have. So there is a little bit difference. Again, the big result difference is he has Celestia then, and to be fair, he does hit the Chariots here. So this game might have gone a little bit differently depending on how we decided to play it. I think with the Bucks and Shrinks, I probably still come out on top, but yeah, I feel bad about that because I don't ever like doing stuff like that. But we do pull it out here. So sorry to Des YGO, because certainly that wasn't on purpose to do this that way. And we've won at this point. There's nothing that he can do with his hand. Yeah, just a crazy setup here at this point. And so now we go to game 2. We draw pretty dang well here. We have to try and clear a lane for us, but if we do that effectively, we've got a good chance at coming away on top here. So I overset a little bit right at the beginning trying to do it. I have to Solemn the Celestia, and that by itself opens up our lane for Secutor. Now here's a really tough decision that I made that was just wrong in the end. I think wrong not just because of the result, but in all scenarios. But I was debating for a while as do I go Rediari, Laquari into Herc here, which I think with Chariot so far was probably more right. I went double Rediari, a little bit greedy. My idea was basically any of these, I need one to survive next turn for me to be in Herc with an extra discard and destroying some stuff and like that much simpler game state. But he has Honest and Brain, and so he brains the Rediari, suicides them, and attacks over Secutor. So I go from 3 GBs to 0. I just think Herc would have been better. Herc and 1 Rediari is still like he's still 3 Lightsworn away. I have Chariot. Just would have been a better choice, honestly, and I should have 2-0'd off of this result, but I ended up losing this one because I also made another mistake. I think I was frustrated by how that happened, and I did think about it for a second, but I was like, I want my GBs to be drawn soon, so I didn't drop a GB to make this a GB so I could use the Chariot, which I think I just should have, even if I wanted to draw them, or I just shouldn't have attacked. But what I did, which was dumb, I just attacked with Prisma, and he drops Gores, and I'm pretty screwed at this point. There's just no great scenario for me to come back quite yet, unfortunately. If I had drawn the Quarry specifically immediately right here, would have been okay, but just didn't get there fast enough. So that was probably my worst played game of the day. Just a couple key decisions back-to-back that were pretty bad. Open up really good game 3 here. And this is kind of a hand where I'm like, if he doesn't draw heavy, I think I'm going to win. And kind of worked out. There is some interesting decisions I had to make. So he opens Smashing, and there's really no strong reason for someone to open Smashing here if their hand is remotely good. And so my logic was I see Prisma plus Rediari being a Gazaris. I see Prisma plus Tiger being a Gazaris, or I see like extra tags and using both of them in the same turn. And I just see a ton of value out of that. And I thought I might have to Solemn something, but the fact he's opening with Smashing here makes me think this book is going to help carry Prisma to the next turn. And I just feel like with the Solemn, however I'm going to have to use it, will carry. And so I did have to Solemn immediately the Arcus, but again, I just was looking at this like there's just no way that his hand is good if these are the decisions that we made here. So feels kind of strange, but instantly I'm just like, okay, I'm going to go. And so we make Gazaris. We conserve Tiger because Tiger is kind of like our clapback opportunity if something goes wrong. So we're in a good spot still there. And I think we go into Herc, we banish this, so he's at 0 lights, 0 Lightsworn, with a hand I just saw that obviously wasn't great, and I have Tiger GB with Bestie in Graveyard, so I have Gazaris live as well. And so I just knew out of the gates that this was probably going to carry. Even if he sets Raikou or something, it's no danger, as along with any spell or traps. And so he just sets the 1 back row, and I just... I could have played it a little safer and Gazarised it, which wouldn't have been game then, but I just played it so that I was going to try to close the game. So just Darius Bestie attack across the road is 3,200 damage, or 3,200 from the non-Herc, so 6,200 total, and able to close the game really fast there. And obviously his hand wasn't good. It was bricked up, and once we decided to do what we did, we were in a really good spot. So that was the Twilight Lightsworn-ish game. I say Twilight because he had Dad in here, but there wasn't a ton of Darks. So the list was probably a little bit unique as well. But I think even with that error in game 1, I think we still end up finding a way to win that one. It's hard to say for sure though, so I feel kind of bad for Des YGO. But that is game 3. So now let's go to game 4, our Blackwing matchup. We 2-0'd this one. Is against GYBU, who is the winner of the tournament. We were his only loss, I believe. So right away, I don't know what he's on yet. I know GYBU in real life, he's in North Carolina, but I don't really know what he's on because he plays a bunch of different things, including GBs too. But this is a great example where, like, if I don't know what someone's on and the hand, like, I'm not going to throw Mermillo out there with Chariot to be live. This is a really great scenario of, like, Stratos was stun and set, and I think I set Chariot too in case I don't want to use it the next turn. Is just a really strong opening because Prisma Tiger is immediately live. Smashing is immediately live for some big pushes. So there's just a lot of value here. And so very, very strong opening for us. So I set and just say go. And I think out of the gates it works out pretty well for us. He uses a Kalut, which for me I'm always like, that's fine. Go ahead and use Kalut. It does not bother me if you're using your Kalut this early, just to out my Stratos. Again, a really prime example of Stratos carrying value here because it burnt through his Shura normal summon, hit the field. So I like Shura not having to be there. It burnt through the Kalut, and now he's like off of a Blackwing as well, the way he's playing it right now. So I don't have to worry about Icarus next turn. Like, there's a ton of value in what just happened. And so again, this is, to me, is one of those turns where people are a lot of times are like, well, I just kind of wish a lot of times something was Prisma. Well, the fact that I ate Kalut so that the Shura could search and summon while now having the Prisma in hand with Tiger is like really, really valuable. It's significantly better than if I had normal Prisma up Laquari turn 1 there. And so really just the type of thing that doesn't always like stand out as like, oh, this is better to have Stratos than Prisma. But if you look at the games over multiple turns and you play enough of them, it's the kind of stuff that stands out to me enough as really good. So he goes Catastor. I kid with him. I don't really strike people on like changing minds like that. But he goes from Catastor to Android and sets 3. Now, I basically, well, if he has Solemn, my life gets complicated. But if he doesn't have Solemn, this Trapstone's just about to put in a bunch of work. And it does. So there's too many back rows for us not to send in advance here. You just can't risk losing the turn to that. The biggest debate I had here was, do I want to just Gazaris retaining smashing, or do I want to smash so that I can Secutor? And I decided to smash in Secutor mostly because he did Yada, so I knew he was going to be down to 2 cards plus his draw versus Chariot, and I could make Herc. And so I just felt like Blackwing's drawing to just a 3rd card versus Herc Chariot with what I was probably going to set Mirror, I think, then as well, is just too much for them to overcome. And so it's what I decided to end up doing. And he ends up scooping before the turn's even out. I think he would have dropped Dad last turn. I mean, I have Chariot too, so that's one of the reasons I'm not forcing the Ready Ari here. But I honestly think he would have dropped Dad last turn and popped the back rows after doing everything if he did have it. So I just didn't think he had Dad was where I was, which is why I didn't Ready Ari at all. I thought about it for a bit. This was not as fast as it looks here. I probably spent 30, 45 seconds thinking about it there. But he scoops right there. So, again, pretty damn good hand. But I honestly think if you need to see replays of Stratos having and carrying value, like, it's a prime example there of, like, the face value doesn't seem like it's crazy, but, like, if you just look at what happened in the game state because of Stratos being there, it was really, really good. I will say, I think I got really lucky in this game because I think GYBU would tell you he messed this one up. Yeah, he didn't play this game very well. I think even this turn is very wrong, given that he has Dad and Icarus's. I don't think there's a need to pull Gale out of the deck, or at least out of the. I mean, you can search it if you really want to. I think Kalut's probably a little bit more right, but searching Gale out of the deck is like a lot less for me to worry about from a GB perspective, and I don't think going this makes sense unless you got specifically deck dev, which is what I thought it was at first, and I was trying to figure out the best way to play around it, but decided I was going to Mermillo it anyways, mostly because if he was going to deck dev, I wanted to get the Tiger at least moving in the process. So that's why I did this. And it turned out he ended up Icarusing the Whirlwind and the Murmillo. So I right out of the gates, I'm like, this is extreme value. I also right out of the gates was like, okay, like now that I saw that was Icarus, it has to be Dad. Like nothing else really clicked for me as making sense other than him having Dad, which was accurate. And I got really lucky because he decided to Blizzard here first, which again I kind of get because if he's like, oh, it's bottomless, at worst he's going to bottomless this, or I can reveal bottomless, and then I drop Dad. But unfortunately, it was torrential, and so I torrentialed here, putting him off Dad the rest of the game. And that just the fact he was off Dad the rest of the game carried the rest of the way. We did have some kind of intricate decision making here. That I did momentarily while I was playing the game second guess the Dad. I was like, okay, well, Rocco's kind of makes sense now because the Blizzard play was pretty confusing to me if there was Dad in hand. So in the moment I was rethinking that Dad was there, even though that was the correct read the whole time. And so we're just playing straight up. Now he does draw heavy here, which is pretty good for him. It was actually worse for me the way I played it because I compulsed my Laquari because I just thought I was going to die no matter what to whatever I was doing. It turns out I would not have died to what he had on field, and I would have just attacked over defense Sirocco. But he just ends up passing. I draw Gores, which is really nice because anytime you're in this far ahead and you draw an extra monster, it's pretty nice. Or you draw Gores rather. Like it feels pretty nice because you're just like, at some point, like this game, as this game gets further simplified, the Gores is going to come in and be a pretty big hammer here. Addition to drawing Gores, the reason I didn't normal is I can't go to Laquari into Laquari at 21, and at this point I do have a very strong read on Sirocco or Cyber. So I was like, if I'm going to get Cyber, I want to trade this with the Cyber with Laquari, and if it's Sirocco, I need him 21. And so I wasn't going to put a 1800 Laquari on the field. There wasn't enough pluses anywhere for me to do that tag. It was just going to be like tossing a GB for 1,000 life or 1800 life points of damage, which was not worth it. So I just passed with the Gores as well. He reads Gores smartly, so that's smart. Here's Stratos coming up really big again, trading with the Shura on field. At this point, I felt like he did have potentially Sidra, so I kept the Sidra in hand instead of leading with that to actually kill this. Because I just thought Stratos trading with the thing plus the Prisma with Gores still live on the back end was just better. So then using Sidra because I want to be able to Chimera Tech later if that comes to it. And so that's what happened here. We just searched Prisma and Suicide the Shura, and that carries the turn. He draws Brain. And now I'm in a good spot because, like, depending on what happens with this tag this turn, I got a few options, but I just didn't feel, again, because like Laquari, some Laquari tag wasn't going to end in a bigger Laquari than Sirocco. It wasn't right to use the MST here when I could have just used this body as an MST, essentially, is how I viewed it. And not just because I end up best CRing it like I do here, but because even if it got Prisoner bottomless, the continued simplification of the game with Gore's Cyber in hand on the back end here was really good, in my opinion. And so I just wanted to keep it simple, fast. So I also felt that was fine to lose the Bestiary there because now Bestie's in Graveyard, charged up for what I need, and I still have my MST for it when he sets anything. And this is when I say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and summon my Cyber to get over this Rocco, which was finally summoned. So I get rid of that. I am playing into another Kalut here. I don't have a strong reason to tell you like why I felt fine doing it, but overall I just wasn't reading Kaluts. We already know we cleared the Shura last turn, so he would have had to like just draw it, and the Solemn just showed up. So that's kind of where I was. Was just if he had Kalut, it probably would have already gotten dropped, and he definitely just drew Solemn, so the Kalut wasn't there. And so I did that and cleared. I just go into Gazaris because I'm like, okay, I can't protect against Blizzard, which feels like the only way I lose. And it's kind of what happens. Even if he brain controls Gazaris, kills Sidra, he just loses then to Gazaris attack. So he realizes he's out and he scoops here. So good game to him. Again, congrats on the winning the tournament. I do think he messed up a little bit here in game 2, but We did have to make some okay decisions down the stretch to solidify it, which is at least nice as well. So that was game 4 versus Blackwing. So let's go to round 5 versus Vayu. We've got it right here. So we got Samu this time. Obviously, Samu is a really well-known, very good player. One of the things that stood out to me in this tournament, I played a lot of really good players, it felt like. And so I do feel always just feels good about meeting players that you know to be good and against decks that you also know are good. And so felt really good. He drew an extra card. I just told him to shuffle it in, which to me is always like the right way. It's a much more game state fair way than revealing it, even though I think that's the Konami way. So Dust Shoot never feels good. He sends Prisma back. I don't think that's necessarily wrong. I think it's probably Tiger that I would send back if I were him, and not Prisma, but it didn't feel totally wrong for him to do that. My only option is either pass or Laquari Suicide here, and I think, or no, I set Prison. I think I wanted to keep the GB. I figured it was Raikou, but I also figured he wasn't going to attack. I think no, okay. I think in a game later I'd attack in a scenario like this maybe, or don't attack in a scenario like this, but yeah, I knew this was a Raikou based off him sending Prisma back because obviously Prisma Tiger clears this. Leaving what he left, it just felt like the Raikou, so decided to knock it out that way. And then I just set Prison, which is probably, I could have set both, which maybe would have been marginally more correct. It would have been a weird scenario where like I don't really feel like I can Solemn a heavy there. He probably knew immediately that was Prison and not Solemn, but and he plays it later that way because he MSTs my Solemn, but yeah. Here's Stratos immediately being valuable again. Now, is this a scenario where maybe just hard drawing Prisma first would have been a little bit better? Maybe, but I did not mind it being Stratos and having another floating body out there. I did fully recognize that this could be Gores and did not attack into it, which probably I won the game because of that. Because I think if I go Gores and then he Caiuses, I think I'm screwed. Maybe not because I have Prisma Tiger and he doesn't have defense, but it wouldn't have looked good. So he just sets Vayu. I probably should have read his Vayu because he now knew I had Prisma Tiger again, and there's no way that he's setting a Raikou then, I think. But we go Prisma Tiger, we do our thing. I will say I drew another Prisma, and as soon as I summoned, I was like, I didn't shuffle, and I just summoned the new draw, so he knows I have another Prisma, but that's kind of the weird. Like I don't play that well online. I feel like on stuff like that, I forget to shuffle randomly here and there. But we Gazaris, and this is really good. This is Stratos finding value because again, it's 1,800 more life points of damage that I wouldn't have gotten the other way, and it's not negligible because he thinks here he's like I'm gonna drop Gores. I'm like I don't care if you drop Gores because I'll have it double at it easily, and so we attack with. I did have a personal preference on prioritizing eliminating both of these, which is why I use Smashing here, mainly for Caius coming down. So I end up, to keep him off of Dad, which he didn't have Dad anyways, I just go Ready Ari Murmillo on the tag here and then smash the remainder. Especially because again, I don't know what he has in hand right now, but I kind of view Solemn plus Prison, even when he knows what I have, the chances are that Solemn plus Prison carries into Gazaris next turn feels pretty high. And then granted, he has MST and calls his shot well on it, so it didn't help. But and then he draws Solemn. So he has that, doesn't attack. So this is really, really good play because he knows what this is, but at the same time, recognizing this play and knowing he's got Solemn now behind a Gale with return and 3 underbodies on field is pretty notable. So I thought it was pretty good. Drawing this Book of Moon, awesome for us because it opened up everything we needed to happen. I don't want to risk my last body into the backfield or the back rows here. And with the book, I know I can just turn attack, and even like Prison or anything. Obviously, Mirror messes us up, which it does, I think, a turn later. But book allows these attacks to go through as long as there's not mirror. And overall, this forces the Solemn out, which ends up really well for us. So I just go Murmillo attack, book it. He Solemns, so he knows I can't out the Gale in battle phase. However, I still have another GB on field. And now that Solemn's out, I'm kind of just, by both necessity and by like just reality of the scenario, I'm thinking this is not a backer that's going to disrupt me at all. Because he definitely probably just drew Solemn. Meaning the other backer was sitting his hand for a while, probably not carrying value. And it ends up being Return, which hitting Return Gale here with his Caius in hand is incredibly, incredibly good. So he does draw Mirror Force, which is sad. And I just throw the bodies into it. Personally, like, there's no reason not for me to do that. In theory, I could turn Gazaris and attack for Stratos. But even then, it's still a 3-turn clock. He's not going to Mirror Force that. And I don't want to summon into it because I think Torrential was still in play. So I just felt best like just attacking with both and hoping it worked out. So it was Mirror Force off the top. It happens. I did debate Rhoda-ing for Prisma immediately, and I probably should have just because Prisma wasn't the very best draw right now. But I ended up drawing another Prisma immediately. And I just attacked the Vayu, and I know because Rhoda would be dead if I draw another Prisma. I go ahead and search the other Prisma, and it's kind of just the downstream of this is just a lot of draw one card that stalls for an out and doesn't help him close. I did get lucky; he did not mill a Sirocco in a lot of this, which was pretty insane for me. So there's some certain luck involved, and now I know I locked the game out once I draw this cat. Doesn't matter what he draws. And for the record, he quits, but I did a cat direct attack for game there. I did not use cat's effect, which I thought was fun. So that was game one. Other than getting dust shooted, I think a lot of things worked out, and a lot of mills just went my way. He didn't mill a Sirocco, so like that was pretty big. So yeah. Now I open heavy cat, which is kind of a scenario where you're like, don't fuck it up because you're probably going to win if you just play it right, which is kind of what happened in the end. We got a lot of bodies, so they become MSTs and like smashing grounds to just exchange down the line. I did think this was Plague or Necro actually is what I thought it was after he did that, because I just think he wouldn't have mirrored. I think he just would have let Raikou clear. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's what he would have done. So pretty straightforward. I think this is all correct play on both of us, honestly. You might as well attack. He maybe with oppression logistically could have been like, you know what, I don't want to attack. I don't think I have to, which maybe he's right. I don't know. But either way, I'm just sitting behind for a clearing of heavy cat and Gazaris, and that turn set it up. So we get to open with heavy, clear and simplify the field. We go into Gazaris. We use the Prisma so that because he does have the Necro, and we want to be able to get at least one tag in, we're using the Prisma as material for the Bestiary here so that we get 2 tags no matter what off, or we get a tag no matter what here because he's going to have to Necro the Gazaris here. And so we just get a Laquari to hand, set bottom with some pass. And again, this one, it's kind of like game one. It's like, it's just going to probably end up with us winning with the advantage that we have. We have enough monsters to keep throwing at back rows. I had so many monsters in hand, specifically here, that I was like, if it's Mirror was already gone, rather. So if it's Torrential, it's Torrential, whatever. It takes out his monster with him, and it accelerates the game again. It keeps the game simple as I'm trying to close, which I think is one of the things that you look to do. So just attack. All this makes sense. He tries to hit a chariot that's not there. Attack again, and now we're going to Herc even without a chariot. Herc here in just a super simple game state with Torrential means he's probably going to have to use all his cards to make an out attempt at Herc, and then we're going to close the game, which is exactly what happened. He top decks Dad, which is one way to out this, but at the same time he could have just, regardless of what he drew, he had a way to just Black Rose the field because of the Plague. But he draws Dad because the value would have been better, obviously, if it had worked out. And just Torrential eats it. And now Again, I don't know he has Sirocco. Kind of my priority is to play around it, so I'm going to just make sure my monster on the board is bigger than Sirocco here. So that's what happens here. And then I draw Chariot, which ices the game here because we're hurt Chariot with a negate in hand against the top deck. Guarantees the solidification of the game. So I don't know if there's any big lessons or takeaways there. It kind of just worked out well for us. We drew well again, some luck for sure. So, but another really good opponent, and yeah, worked out for us. So we're getting to the end here. We have the last win of the day and the last round to end Swiss undefeated versus Diva Hero. I've never played this guy that I recall, so this is a new match for me. This is one of my favorite setups of the day. I definitely knew what he was on going into the game because it was the last round. But it was interesting how I played it. And I played very specifically to try to get Gores in play fast. And it felt pretty unconventional how I did a lot of things. And I'm not saying this is right, but this is like the script I envisioned as I was playing, and it worked out great. So I liked that. I drew another book, which also motivated me on how to play this hand. So Gilman's like randomly very annoying for GBs here. It's a 1700 beater. I didn't want to use Smashing because that's too important as 1-for-1 out versus Diva Hero. I'm not going to use that. 2 books and Compulse is kind of like the chances of all three as having value are pretty slim in a Diva Hero matchup. And so I was more readily okay with using the books. And so I go ahead and just normal a quest and decide that I want to specifically book a quest and then set Compulse with the goal of, honestly, in the ideal world, I was like, he's going to Caius the Quest, I'm going to Compulse the Quest. The other world was just, he's just going to Gilman attack, and then I'm going to Compulse the Quest, and then drop Gores. And fortunately, the better one of those two happened. So he Caius is in immediately. I honestly think he maybe should have hit the back row, because by just setting 1 here, I'm kind of saying Battle Trap a lot more so than Summon Trap, because I just lose to Gilman attack to it. So I thought there was a world he might target the back row. He targets the monster, which is maybe more correct, but I then Compulse it. And I feel like specifically the way I played this said I do not have Gores like loud and clear, because it seems pretty unconventional for you to use a book to do that. Again, I had 2 of them, so I just felt like it was okay. It is nice to save your 1 GB with the Compulse, but I just felt like the ultimate downstream of this was saying I don't have Gores. And so he attacked into the Gores right away. And that was massive, because this game closes immediately when I top deck Tiger then. Because we're now in Herc, Gores, 2400 token, Book of Moonset, negate in hand. I think he scoops right away in the next turn. But just uncovering that Gores in a specific way was really valuable. There's some luck in the process too, for sure. But I thought it was a fun play to pull off that mattered a lot in the outcome of this one. I don't want to say not winning. I definitely had a few ways to handle what he had as well in his hand, but this helped close the game really fast, so he had to draw immediately something really good to be able to out it, and he didn't have that, fortunately. So he just sets these, and we just get down to attacking. I don't have to worry about sets in game 1 especially versus Diva Hero, so we're just attacking down the line. I think we close the game immediately. So that was a fun game 1, and worked out for us. Game 2, we have a really good hand right here, where I'm basically like, kind of clear the road, find a way to Herc, and we're going to end the game pretty quickly. And we have protection through back row. We have protection through being able to beat over a bigger monster on the field. It just felt really good for us there. So, yeah, overall solid here. I did not want to toss. A lot of times I'm fine. If I have multiple GBs, I'm fine tossing Laquari just head on into this Stratos. I don't think I would shrink in this scenario if I had 2 GBs. and I'm not going to do it into a back row with just the one anyways. So yeah, we just decided to set a bunch and go from there. And so Stratos attacks, makes absolute sense, and then he sets 2 more, and I draw a Prisma, which is pretty good. There are a couple ways to handle this board. I debated for a little bit, just like now that I have Prisma Tiger, do I just Laquari attack and try to simplify a little bit, attack the face down, because I did think it might have been Snowman, and that crossed my mind in consideration. But I felt like with Trapstone, I was going to be able to, Trapstone specifically, Chariot next, I felt like I was going to be able to carry the board pretty well, and I wanted to do that. So I debate for a little bit. This also is a scenario where, against something like Blackwings, or some deck that has usually a few more chainable things, I'm more likely to Trapstone in advance here, as opposed to after. But I decide not to, and maybe riskier than I should tolerate, but it did cross my mind, and I decided not to. So we just go into Prisma Tiger, Gazaris combo. We hit the back rows. I did think about the face down for a little bit, but ultimately I wanted to take the shot that Trapstone wasn't going to have to be used here, in which case I would have attacked the face down because my Chariot would have been live. But also, I know I have an easy monster to attack over. I know I'm not really that worried about any set monster in the deck that much at all, with Chariot especially. So I just wanted to make sure the back rows got off the board immediately. And so that is what happened. We attack this, and then it's Rediari and Sam Knight because of the shrink. You could argue that Sam Knight's wrong and that it should be Laquari, and I wouldn't tell you that you're wrong. But this was a good example where I think shrink, giving me the chance to search off of Sam Knight, was a lot of value as well. He makes a misplay this next turn too that maybe tilted the match as well too. So there was some fortunate play here too, because he does flip what is Snowman. So good job for us not attacking it. There's actually a pretty strong world we don't have to Chariot this, because then his instant response is going to be Caius summon, in which case we then Chariot that. So we suck Caius out. Because it was pretty obvious it was going to be Caius off of this, because there's no other reason to flip this Snowman proactively, I don't think. And so I maybe didn't think about that long enough in the game, because as I'm thinking about it, it might have just been more correct to let a GB die and maybe kind of let him play as if he didn't think I had Chariot more. But I do Chariot it. I think part of it was because he targeted Sam Knight, and I was like, I think Sam Knight's going to get a chance to search here. And if that's the case, I want the Sam Knight search badly. So he summons Cyber and just attacks Rediari. So he's kind of already playing around this Sam Knight, I believe, search. He's either playing around shrinking the Sam Knight search, or he's really prioritizing getting Rediari out because he has a Miracle and he has only a Water, and he doesn't want Rediari to be able to work more. So I think both those are possible. One of the reasons I'm not 100% sure what he was thinking is because if he's going for Rediari here, I think that would have been what Snowman targeted. So it's kind of odd to me that he Snowman Sam Knight, but then attacked Rediari. It's like playing around Shrink is the only thing that comes to mind. Either way, he attacks it and attacks into Shrink. Now, he obviously had an option to Cyber into Caius here, which I think is ultimately correct. It maybe doesn't feel good for him because of the risk, but once Cyber's summoning, like, there's no way I don't think there's any way I'm not bottomlessing Sidra here. And so in that scenario, Caius target the back row is now probably really strong on the board, and it would have been. I think he might have won if he did that. But instead he attacks into it, which lets me tag. And the really good thing about this is I thought a lot about this tag, because I was like, I can't Rediari is Rediari already. The only guaranteed plus is a quest at the moment. But my initial thought was, if he somehow figures out like normals Stratos into Miracle, or he goes Future Miracle, or he goes set 2 back row, Bestiari is my best chance to keep him off something super intimidating. And so I went Bestiari so that no matter what I drew, I had a chance to clear the field before then summoning and attacking. And so that's what happened. Obviously, he had Regeki Break, which is not great, but I consciously made this decision knowing as long as the guy is not terrible, which he was XO in Swiss coming into the final round, so I didn't think he was terrible. I know this is probably going to out the Gazaris, but I felt like the right way for me to continue was to simplify it again and knock it out, and then just normal Sam Knight and attack. And so that's what we did. You probably argue that Kai's discard's probably right. And then I just go into Quest to get the Chariot. So there are probably, I don't know if he had Kaikus in. Actually, I think he summons a Kaiku in a second. But Stratos not searching could have come out. Stratos and Kaiku is probably the only summons. You could make an argument that Laquari was more correct here for a tag-in to be at 2100, but I think the Chariot is more likely to carry value for like Divas and things like that. So he draws another Miracle. So he's like really unfortunate position here. Like, a hero really unlocks his hand, but if I get Ready Ari, this Snowman, then he's in a rough spot. Drew Trapstone, which is a really good draw here. It feels really good to close this way. And then just to turn Chariot on again, I just normal the Laquari, and then the game's over because he just draws Mally and doesn't have a way to get it there. And so I think this for the next turn is when he gets the Kaiku this turn. Normals, I accidentally Chariot. I thought he looked at Graveyard for a split second, and I thought he was targeting, which is why I Charioted, but he didn't Chariot, so that was my fault. And then I draw Cat, which is game in 3 different ways. So that was game. I tried to say sorry immediately about the top deck because it ended the game. Again, this was the most fun way for me to go for game here, but I double Sam Knight for game, or Marmelo for game 2, or Darius Gazaris for game, or any number of crazy ways. But yeah, so that was the last match of Swiss. A lot of good things my way, went my way there too. So it was a fun day. Ended Swiss again 6-0 against a pretty good diversity of decks. I mean, playing 3 Vayu and Blackwing is never like a tough or never an easy lineup. So I was happy to get through all those again against. I think everyone was a pretty good player throughout the day. And that brings me to the top cut game against Hydro Pump and Dragon Turbo, which didn't love. I know Hydro Pump is a good dude, and I didn't really want to play him. Dragon Turbo is generally a pretty good GB matchup, and honestly, I think the match played out like it was obviously a good GB matchup, and some crazy things happened. So, game 1, he has to do the Super Rejuve double draw thing, and then he gets Charioted. I Charioted his Stone Searchers. Maybe I shouldn't have. I don't know. I just felt like, well, if he has Trading in hand, might not. Although he probably didn't have Trading because he discarded Blue Eye. It's probably wrong to Chariot that, honestly. But I did. And so we ended up here. I think he was going to try and Black Rose play. No. Yeah, this is just going to be a Black Rose play to clear the board before he drew a bunch. But I had Book and Compulse set. And so he ends that turn drawing another Sandmite, so we're just Sandmite attacking. Killing things. Nothing too crazy going on right now. I think we ready Ari. Nope, Laquari. So trade in. Again, nothing too crazy here. Compulse for Prime. I know Hydro Pump plays Torrential and Mirror, and also I think that's right in Dragon Turbo. It makes a big difference. So that forces me to immediately go into Herc here. And he is also then forced to Reckless as well. So he Recklesses once I set. And then I'm pretty damn sure, I know it's Torrential and Mirror Force. It would have been another Reckless if he played it, so or he would have played it if it was. So go into Herc, and he immediately torrentials. And then I attack. And I negate with Solemn, which I think is right because I just wanted GBs to attack and tag right now. And then I have to Chariot the Trag. And I think just Instant Fusion here represents too many different random things that can occur. So I have to also negate Instant Fusion, specifically just Instant Fusion to Red Meadows game. And it's the correct negate. It takes a lot of extra resources to now out this Herc because I negated it. But he is able to out it with a Catastor, which is really, really sad because this Catastor now, he's at 100 life points. Keep that in mind. 100 life points. I would tell you that I will likely win this matchup at this game state 85, 90% of the time. It's just so pro GB. I think there's probably 10 extremely clean outs in my deck to this. And then another 10 to 12 of technically 2-card combos that probably would have been a lot easier to pull off. But I drew Trapstone into heavy, I think, next, which is just really unfortunate timing for that. Oh, his Torrential's not bad, obviously, if he summons into it, but I'm forced to activate it my next turn. And then he draws his Drago, and I summon Torrential it. Now I have to just pray he doesn't have a real monster. But he also has Reckless set, so I have Traps and Reckless, and then he just normals Drago for a game. So that felt really bad because I was not everything went my way that game by any means really, but it just felt like I was probably going to win game one, and the Catastor just soloed for longer than I would have expected. And then I was able to close. So game one was kind of unfortunate. It felt like to lose specifically, more so than anything else. In game three, I lose, and you'll see. And I felt unfortunate because he opened strong, but the game state overall, I understand losing based off how the game opened. So this one, again, I'm going first now, and it's just kind of comes down to can I protect Prisma so I can Gazaris into Herc turn 2 is really the game plan. He card destructions at the gates, which was kind of unfortunate because both my Lucaris and my Darius are there now, meaning my path to Herc is multiple things away. And there's a chance I played this wrong here because if I Gazaris, I can at least attack and then go into Equest or Equest Ready Ari at that point. However, the reason I didn't do that was because if for some reason he did decide to keep Tragon or keep Gazaris in, and I couldn't Darius my Bestiari back, I was in a really tricky spot. And so I decided not to do that. And also, one of the reasons I was thinking I was okay, I'm going to quest attack first. Let's say this is just nothing happens. Then I'll go Bestiari here. And then just have the Bestiari for a pop there or something like that. I think something like that was my thought process. Either way, again, I probably should have Gazaris because of on the tag outs of even double Equest also would have been really strong to go Equest into Darius Laquari. Maybe it just would have been better. But this is what I decided in the moment. So we go Ready R, we remove the Drago, which feels better to me. I thought about exactly what to do, but removing Drago felt better than removing Red Med in the moment, for sure. So at this point, his only real thing was instant, in which case I got rid of the instant immediately, and then I draw a GB per game on damage. So I was in a pretty good spot that game. He didn't draw particularly well going first for me, so it was what it was. And now here's game 3, and he opens what can be known as the nuts, we think. At least I don't know. I actually haven't watched this game yet, but he opens Future, which is enough value in Dragon Turbo already. But it's actually crazy what this is plus wise. So he immediately goes plus 3 essentially off of future because he has Wyvern for red med, and he gets 2 blue eyes off of their searches. So just immediately very, very good for him. But then he also has a cards of consonants. So he goes plus, he's now essentially +4 turn 1. Which is really good. And he has heavy Trunade, which is obviously good for him. And it comes up later on, as you'll see. I'm sure he's debating what he wants to do here. I know he has 3 blue eyes in hand, so that's notable that his hand's not entirely like incredible. But I also know this. I don't know about Drago. I know he didn't dump Drago, which is kind of informative, because dumping Drago here usually does make a lot of sense. But I think also versus GBs, he might not want to dump him either way because he kind of likes the normal summon of a Drago versus GBs, like he like game 1, like it closed. So those are just some things going through my mind as I'm looking at this replay, and a little bit of what I was thinking. I think in the moment I was just thinking like, please stop, don't do anything more. So he does a trade, and obviously he probably thought about this card destruction for a second. But then heavy and Trunade being in hand, he was like, I can't get rid of him, so he decided not to. I do think there's a debate for him of Drago versus Redman. I'd be curious what he says about that, because I don't know which is more right. I think maybe this is the more correct one. I'm essentially full cooked if I don't have Crow here. So the fact I can Crow this at the beginning is like actually fairly insane value out of the gates. Or I shouldn't say value. It's just fairly insane and valuable. It's good for me, but it's not value. It just is like, okay, you have a prayer now. So the downside again though is like he's already plus essentially 4 because he took a card out of my hand. He went +3 here. So he's essentially +4 on me already out of the gates, and it's going to be tough to come back from that overall. And so I just get a GB, summon, attack, and pass, because Trapson obviously had. I couldn't delay turns of action, so I had to eat it with one of them. And Darius to me represented a little bit more important of recovery value to make Herc, which is like part of the script here. So he normals Drago, and I solemn it, which feels horrible, as you would probably guess. But I think ultimately is correct on how to handle this setup. Like the path was Sekitor into Herc to attempt some control in the game, and that prevented it. So that's what we did. And he torrentials, we trap stun, and we're just going into Herc and praying that we can carry. So we Bestie and Laquari. Really wish their future is another example. Like future is carrying so much value, because like if future wasn't on the field for whatever reason, I would be able to quest this Murmillo and have another discard, which is like extremely important right now. And so I have to kill that and go to Herc. He doesn't have red med, so this debris dragon's not doing anything. And he debates probably a minute or so in this scenario, and then card destructions. And as much as like I don't like stopping cards like this that are like technically -1 for him, I just knew there was no way that he was card destructing if his hand was good enough to beat the Herc, probably, and then especially with no Black Rose for me, and then also like 6 fresh cards. There's just no way I was going to be able to beat that. So I negate it, and he just sets Oppression passes. I just attack because Mirror Force is gone, so I just attack, and it wasn't like a lower turn count essentially. Then he draws Drago and sets it. Now, here's the really tough scenario here that I think like kind of tilted the game. Legendary Jujutsu Master is a fairly common side in for Dragon Turbo versus GBs. And I know he's played it in the past. Like he's played it in matches we've played in the past. We've talked about it before. And I didn't 100% know he had it, yes or no, in the tournament. It wasn't open replays. So I just didn't know. But I was trying to think through the scenario, like if it happens, what's the worst thing that can happen? Which is obviously like just losing Herc and then losing to like a lot of things. Ultimately, the thing that kind of tilted it is I drew this chariot this turn right after he set this, and I was like, okay, well, I have protection against the Jujutsu Master if I just wait a turn, so I didn't attack. And I can't decide if that's right or wrong. I mean, it's kind of, we're in game 3. I didn't see any in game 2, and so maybe there's some level of logic where I should be like, let's make him have it. But because I drew the chariot, if I didn't draw chariot, I'm attacking because I need to start accelerating. But chariot was like a kind of in between of it. I still had a discard against a hand that he hadn't yet done anything with. Even that felt uncomfortable. So he draws and passes. And I think this is probably the biggest mistake. But still not entirely wrong, because if I have Herc, I'm saying I attack Legendary Jujutsu Master and I chariot. Well, yes, I have Herc with 2 discards in hand, which is good, but it's then there's nothing on board protecting him from just Debris Dragon into Red Med, which I know is coming soon, regardless if it's happened yet, it's coming. So my hope here was the back rows isn't something I'm gonna have to negate. If it's Legendary Jujutsu Master, I attack, kill it, and then Laquari attacks, and then I recover the chariot with a quest. And so instead it's not, and we just double attack in, and then I tag out, and it's oppression, which generally is fine for me, because if he can't get rid of the oppression, then I'm going to win the game for sure, because he can't get through Herc without repression being gone. And so my attitude is I have 1 negate. I need to hope he doesn't have heavy and Trunade, and I should be fine to win. And unfortunately, he has both, and he already has both too. But he also draws into the red med that he needs to close here as well on the very last trade-in draw here. So he goes heavy. I have to negate it because Chariot and Oppression are probably the only things I'm expecting to keep me alive. And he draws red med with the last card there, which is what he needs after Trunade to go ahead and take me out. And so that's how it was. A really good match, honestly, overall. He played really well, got the most out of his cards, and I think we played in most scenarios at least like the most likely best route, but maybe should have thought about it a little bit differently and decided there. There's maybe 2 decisions that could have been on a little bit differently, but that was the loss we had on the day in top 8 of the tournament. So not perfect play. I think at least B+ play throughout the day overall. But yeah, so hopefully this was valuable. This is going to be a long video. I know I'm not sure how long we've been recording, but let me know if you have questions or in the comments or anything like that. And hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you very much, guys.